So this is rough sawn lumber. It's splintery, inconsistent, and if I'm being honest, a little intimidating. I started this whole project with just two types of boards, walnut and hard maple, and I had absolutely no idea how it would turn out. This was my first time ever making cutting boards, and I decided to start with the rawest material you can get. The goal was to create 4 beautiful Christmas gifts using this pile of rough wood. But I definitely had my doubts. But what happened after milling it down, adding a personal touch with the laser, and hitting it with that final finish? Well, the change is something you just have to see for yourself. It all starts here, with wood that looks more like it belongs in a firewood pile than in a kitchen. This walnut and maple came from a local mill, which is great, but it means it's far from perfect. The surfaces are coarse, the edges are jagged, and you can't see any of the beautiful grain hiding inside. People love mixing walnut and maple for that amazing contrast, the deep, rich brown against the creamy, bright white. But right now, you can't see any of that. The whole journey from this rough state to a finished cutting board is about revealing what's hiding underneath, one step at a time. The first real step is milling. This is where we take the wood from wild and unruly to perfectly flat and square. I started at the joiner to flatten one face of each board. I took super light passes, less than a 1/16 of an inch, just shaving away that rough exterior without wasting good wood. With every pass, more and more of the real grain started peeking through. It felt like pulling back a dusty curtain. Once one face and edge was perfectly flat and square, I ran the boards through the thickness planer. This machine makes the other side perfectly parallel and gets the board to a consistent thickness. And trust me, you cannot skip this step if you want those glue lines to be invisible later on. After the planer, it was over to the table saw to rip the boards into strips. I decided to go with a classic alternating pattern of walnut and maple, and I cut the strips a little long to give myself some wiggle room for trimming at the end. I made 2 designs, one with more maple and one with more walnut. Then came the glue up. This is the moment your design finally comes to life. I laid out the strips, alternating the dark walnut and light maple, and made sure the grain patterns looked good together. I put a generous amount of food-safe wood glue on the edges of each strip and clamped them all together, making sure the pressure was even across the whole board to prevent any gaps. After wiping away all the squeezed out glue, I had to be patient and let it cure for a full 24 hours. After the glue was fully cured, I trimmed the ends for perfectly square corners and then sanded everything smooth. I started with a coarse 80 grit paper and worked my way all the way up to a buttery smooth 320 grit. But I wanted to add 2 more custom details to really make them stand out. So I decided to use my X-Tool F1 laser engraver that I purchased during Black Friday for a small design. This little portable diode laser is awesome for getting super clean engravings on wood. I whipped up a simple design in the X-Tool software and used the machine's framing lasers to line it up perfectly in the corner. For my setup, a blue light at 60% power and 175 speed gives a really sharp line without burning too deep. A quick pass with the laser, a wipe down to get rid of the rest of the dust, one last sanding, and the board was ready for the final and most dramatic step. But before that final step, I decided to put in some finger grooves in the side of each board using a bullnose router bit. Now comes the moment of truth. To make that grain pop and protect the wood, I mixed up my own board finish. It's a dead simple food-safe recipe, just a 4-to-1 ratio of mineral oil to beeswax pellets. I just melted them together in a small crock pot until the wax completely dissolved. This blend both conditions the wood and gives it a nice water-resistant seal. First, I gave the board a 24-hour soak in a bath of pure food-grade mineral oil. This lets the oil sink deep into the wood fibers, which will keep the board from drying out and cracking down the road. After its long soak, I wiped off the extra oil and slathered on a thick coat of the warm oil and beeswax blend. I let that sit overnight, allowing the wax to harden on the surface. The next day, all that was left was to buff it out with a clean cloth. And the result? It was a genuinely unbelievable one. The finish felt smooth as butter, and the grain, which was once hidden, now had this deep, glowing luster. The dark streaks in the walnut looked so rich, and the maple gave it this beautiful, creamy contrast. The transformation was complete. From a splintery pile of rough lumber to this, a piece of functional art for the kitchen. The whole process was definitely a test of my patience, but seeing this final result made every single step worth it. If you feel inspired to try your own woodworking project, or if you just enjoyed watching this transformation, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more builds. Let me know what you think of how it turned out in the comments down below. I honestly started this with no idea how these boards would turn out and how they would look in the end, and I couldn't be happier with the final cutting boards. It just goes to show you that with a little patience and the right steps, you can turn something raw and overlooked into something truly stunning. It's more than just a cutting board. It's proof that sometimes the most beautiful things come from the roughest starts. Thanks for watching. See ya.